Some stories begin with a shout. This one began with a whisper of fear, a flash of anger, and a pair of eyes that saw everything. It was a stormy Friday night at the Silver Spoon Diner, a neon-lit haven on the edge of a city that never truly slept. Rain hammered the windows, turning the street outside into a river of reflections. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of coffee, fried onions, and the low hum of old rock and roll from the jukebox. At the counter, a young woman named Lily wiped down mugs, her ponytail swaying as she moved. She was new in town, working double shifts to pay for her mother's medical bills, and she'd already learned to keep her head down and her smile ready. But tonight, something was off. 3 men in leather jackets sat in a corner booth, their voices low, their laughter sharp. They watched Lily with hungry eyes, whispering to each other every time she passed. The other customers noticed, but no one said a word. The cook, a gentle giant named Gus, caught Lily's eye and gave her a nod he'd keep watch, just in case. At a table near the window, a man in a faded ball cap sipped his coffee. His German shepherd sprawled at his feet. The man's name was Jack, and he was more than he seemed. His eyes were calm, but his posture was alert, every muscle ready. The dog, a sable shepherd named Shadow, watched the room with the same quiet intensity. Jack had seen trouble before. He'd spent years as a Navy SEAL, his life a blur of danger and discipline. Now, he was just passing through, looking for Pasor, at least a place to rest. But old habits died hard, and tonight, his instincts were screaming. Lily brought them in their check, her hands trembling. One of them grabbed her wrist, his grip tight. "Where you from, sweetheart? You got a boyfriend?" She tried to pull away, her voice steady but small. "Please let go. I have other tables." The man laughed, squeezing harder. "We're just being friendly. Don't be rude." Jack stood, his chair scraping the floor. Shadow rose with him, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The diner fell silent. Every eye turned to the confrontation. Jack's voice was calm, but it carried. "Let her go." The man sneered. "Or what, old man? You gonna call the cops?" Jack smiled. "Just a hint." "No need, but you should know my friend here doesn't like bullies." Shadow took a step forward, his teeth bared, his eyes locked on the man's hand. The man hesitated, then released Lily, shoving her away. "You got a problem, hero?" Jack shook his head. "Not yet, but you're about to." The tension in the diner was electric. Lily backed away, her eyes wide with fear and gratitude. Gus stepped out from the kitchen, a heavy skillet in his hand. The men looked at each other, weighing their options. The leader spat on the floor. "This ain't over." Jack watched them go, Shadow at his side, every sense alert. But as the door slammed behind the men, Jack knew the night was far from finished. He'd seen that look before, the look of men who didn't take no for an answer. And as the rain began to fall harder outside, Jack made a silent promise. No one would hurt Lily tonight, not while he and Shadow were there. The rain outside intensified, drumming a relentless rhythm on the diner's roof. Lily retreated behind the counter, her hands shaking as she poured a fresh pot of coffee. Gus, the cook, gave her a reassuring smile, but she could see the worry in his eyes. Jack sat back down, Shadow settling at his feet, but neither relaxed. Jack's gaze swept the room, cataloging every face, every exit, every possible threat. Years of training had taught him to trust his instincts, and tonight they were screaming at him to stay alert. Lily tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept replaying the encounter. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but never anything like this. The men's eyes had been cold, their smiles cruel. She glanced at the door, half expecting them to burst back in. Gus leaned over the counter, his voice low. "You okay, kid?" Lily nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just shook me up, I guess." Gus's jaw tightened. "You let me know if they come back?" "I got your back." Lily's story was one of quiet resilience. She'd moved to the city 6 months ago, fleeing a small town where everyone knew her business. Her mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and Lily had taken on the burden of bills, appointments, and hope. She worked 2 jobs, took night classes, and dreamed of a better life. The Silver Spoon was supposed to be a fresh startup place where she could blend in, save some money, and maybe, just maybe, catch her breath. But trouble had a way of finding her. Jack, meanwhile, was no stranger to trouble. After a decade as a Navy SEAL, he'd seen the worst the world had to offer. He'd lost friends, made enemies, and carried scars that ran deeper than skin. Shadow had been his partner for the last 3 years. A K-9 trained for combat, search and rescue, and, most importantly, for keeping Jack grounded. Shadow was more than a dog. He was a lifeline. When the nightmares came, Shadow was there. When the world felt too loud, Shadow's steady presence brought Jack back. Tonight, Shadow's hackles were up, his eyes never leaving the door. The men who had harassed Lily were known around the neighborhood as the Southside Crew. They ran protection rackets, shook down local businesses, and made life miserable for anyone who crossed them. Lily had heard the stories, but she'd never thought they'd target her. As the night wore on, the diner emptied out. The regulars paid their checks and hurried into the rain, casting nervous glances at the shadows outside. Lily wiped down the tables, her mind racing with worry for her mother, who was home alone. Jack watched her, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way she flinched at every sound. He wanted to help, but he knew from experience that sometimes the best thing you could do was wait for the right moment, the right words. Shadow wind softly, nudging Jack's hand. Jack scratched his ears, whispering, "Good boy, we'll keep her safe." Just before midnight, the bell above the door jingled. Lily's heart leaped into her throat as the men returned, this time with 2 more in tow. Their leader grinned, his eyes cold. "Told you we'd be back, sweetheart." Gus stepped out from the kitchen, skillet in hand. Jack stood, Shadow at his side, every muscle coiled and ready. The tension in the diner was palpable. The other staff huddled near the back, unsure whether to call the police or run. The leader leaned on the counter, his voice low and menacing. "You gonna be nice to us tonight, or do we have to teach you some manners?" Lily's hands shook, but she stood her ground. "Please, just leave me alone." The man laughed, reaching for her arm. Jack's voice cut through the room like a blade. "That's enough." The men turned, sizing him up. The leader sneered. "You again? You got a death wish, old man." Jack smiled. "Just a hint." "No, but you might." Shadow growled, his teeth bared, his eyes locked on the leader. The room was silent, every eye on the confrontation, and as the rain battered the windows and thunder rumbled in the distance, Lily realized she wasn't alone. Not tonight. The diner was frozen in a moment of tension so thick it felt like the air itself might shatter. Lily's breath caught in her throat as the leader of the Southside Crew glared at Jack, sizing him up. The other men fanned out, blocking the exits, their eyes flicking between Shadow and the skillet-wielding Gus. Jack didn't move. He stood with the easy confidence of a man who had faced down worse than this, his gaze steady, his hands relaxed at his sides. Shadow's growl was a low, constant rumble, his body poised to spring. The leader smirked, trying to regain control. "You think you're tough, old man? You got a problem with us?" Jack's voice was calm, almost gentle. "I have a problem with bullies, and with men who threaten women." The gangster's sneer faltered. He looked at Shadow, then back at Jack. "You got a badge or something?" Jack shook his head. "Don't need one." Gus stepped forward, skillet raised. "You heard him. Leave the girl alone, or you'll have to deal with both of us." The men laughed, but there was an edge of uncertainty in their voices. The leader leaned in, his voice a whisper meant only for Jack. "You don't know who you're messing with." Jack's eyes didn't waver. "Neither do you." For a moment, it seemed like violence was inevitable. But then, Shadow barked a single, sharp command that echoed off the walls. The sound was so sudden, so forceful, that even the gangsters flinched. The leader stepped back, his bravado slipping. "This ain't over," he spat, motioning for his crew to follow. "We'll see you around, sweetheart." They filed out into the rain, slamming the door behind them. The tension in the diner broke like a wave, replaced by a rush of relief and gratitude. Lily sagged against the counter, her hands shaking. Gus put an arm around her shoulders. "You okay, kid?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, both of you." Jack gave her a small, reassuring smile. "You're safe now, but you should call the police. File a report." Lily hesitated. "They'll just come back." "They always do." Jack's expression hardened. "Not if we make it clear they're not welcome. Not if the whole neighborhood stands up to them." Gus nodded. "He's right. We've let them push us around for too long." Shadow sat at Jack's feet, his eyes never leaving the door. The other staff and customers gathered around, murmuring their thanks. Some offered to walk Lily home. Others promised to keep an eye out for trouble. As the night wore on, the diner slowly emptied. Lily finished her shift, her nerves still raw, but her spirit unbroken. Jack and Shadow stayed until closing, their presence a silent promise of protection. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the city felt different, charged with possibility, with a sense that something had shifted. Lily walked home with Jack and Shadow, her heart pounding with fear and hope. She told them about her mother, about her dreams, about the way the gangsters had made her feel powerless. Jack listened, his silence full of understanding. He knew what it was to feel alone, to fight battles no one else could see. When they reached her apartment, Lily turned to Jack, her voice trembling. "Why did you help me?" Jack grew gay, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Because someone once helped me, and because Shadow doesn't like bullies." Lily laughed, the sound shaky, but real. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jack nodded, his eyes keened. "You're stronger than you think." As he and Shadow walked away, Lily watched them go, a sense of safety settling over her for the first time in months. But as she closed her door, she couldn't shake the feeling that the gangsters would be back. And as Jack and Shadow disappeared into the night, the city's shadows seemed to whisper of trouble yet to come. The next morning, the city was washed clean by the rain, but the tension from the night before lingered like a bruise. Lily woke early, her sleep restless and full of shadows. She checked on her mother, who was still asleep, then made coffee and stared out the window, replaying every moment at the diner. Her phone buzzed a message from Gus. "You okay? Call me if you need anything." Lily smiled, grateful for his kindness, but her mind was still on Jack and Shadow. She wondered who they really were, and why Jack's calm had unsettled the gangsters so much. Meanwhile, Jack was already up, running Shadow through drills in the empty lot behind his motel. The dog's focus was razor-sharp, his movements precise. Jack's mind, however, was on the South Side crew. He'd seen their type before, men who thrived on fear, who pushed until someone pushed back. After breakfast, Jack walked Shadow to the diner. The place was quiet, the neon sign flickering in the morning light. Gus greeted him with a nod. "Thanks for last night." "You got a way of handling trouble," Jack's rude. "Just did what needed doing." Gus leaned in, his voice low. "Those guys, they're bad news. They've been shaking down businesses for months. Cops don't do much. People are scared." Jack's eyes narrowed. "They'll be back. We need to be ready." Gus nodded. "I'll talk to the other shops. Maybe we can get people to stand together." Lily arrived, her face pale but determined. She thanked Jack again, her gratitude genuine. "I want to help. I'm tired of being afraid." Jack smiled. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, even when you're scared." Shadow wagged his tail, sensing the shift in mood. As the day wore on, Jack kept watch. Shadow at his side. He noticed a black sedan parked across the street, its windows tinted. The same car circled the block twice, slowing each time it passed the diner. Jack's instincts flared. He made a mental note of the license plate, then slipped out the back to follow the car on foot. Shadow moved with him, silent and alert. They trailed the sedan to a warehouse near the river. Jack watched from the shadows as the gangsters met with a man in a suit someone knew, someone dangerous. He overheard snippets of conversation. The girl saw too much. We can't let her talk. Tonight, after closing, Jack's blood ran cold. He hurried back to the diner, his mind racing. He pulled Lily aside, his voice urgent. They're coming for you. Tonight. We need to be ready. Lily's eyes widened, but she nodded. What do we do? Jack outlined a plan: secure the doors, alert the staff, call Gus and the other business owners. He gave Lily a burner phone, just in case. If anything happens, call me. Shadow and I will be close. As dusk fell, the diner filled with regulars, some there for food, others for safety. Gus kept a baseball bat behind the counter. Lily worked the tables, her nerves taut but her resolve unbroken. Shadow paced the floor, his nose twitching, his eyes scanning every face. Outside, the black sedan idled in the shadows. Inside, the community braced for a fight, and as the first stars appeared in the night sky, Jack knew the real battle was about to begin. Night fell heavy and thick over the city. The Silver Spoon diner glowed like a beacon, its windows fogged with warmth and the promise of safety. Inside, the regulars lingered over their coffee, their eyes darting to the door every time it creaked. Gus moved with purpose behind the counter, his baseball bat within easy reach. Lily worked the tables, her smile brave, but her hands trembling. Jack sat near the door, shadowed at his feet, every sense on high alert. He'd texted the license plate to a friend in law enforcement, but he knew help might not come in time. Tonight, it was up to them. At 10:45, the black sedan pulled up outside. The gangsters spilled out, more of them than before, 6 in all, their faces hard, their eyes cold. The leader strode in first, his confidence a mask for the fear that always lived just beneath the surface. The diner fell silent. The gangsters fanned out, blocking the exits, their hands in their jackets. The leader walked up to the counter, his voice low and menacing. We warned you, sweetheart. You should have listened. Lily stood her ground, her voice steady. I'm not afraid of you. The leader sneered. You should be. Jack stood, shadow rising with him, a low growl rumbling in his chest. That's enough. You want her? You go through me. The leader laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you're a hero? You think your dog scares me? Jack's eyes were cold. You should be scared. You're outnumbered, and you don't even know it. Gus stepped out from the kitchen, bat in hand. The regulars stood, some holding chairs, others with fists clenched. The community had rallied, just as Jack had hoped. The leader pulled a gun, waving it at the crowd. Sit down. All of you. Shadow barked, sharp and commanding. The gangsters hesitated, thrown off by the dog's confidence. Jack moved fast, his training taking over. He grabbed a coffee pot, hurling it at the leader's hand. The gun clattered to the floor. Shadow lunged, knocking one gangster off his feet. Gus swung his bat, catching another in the knee. Chaos erupted. The gangsters fought back, but the staff and regulars held their ground. Lily ducked behind the counter, dialing 911 on the burner phone Jack had given her. The leader grabbed Lily, dragging her toward the door. Nobody move, or she gets hurt. Jack's heart pounded. He locked eyes with Shadow, giving a silent command. The dog circled behind the leader, moving with the stealth of a shadow. Jack spoke, his voice calm but deadly. Let ergo. Last chance. The leader pressed a gun to Lily's head. Back off. Shadow lunged, sinking his teeth into the leader's arm. The gun fired, the bullet shattering a window. Lily broke free, scrambling into Gus's arms. Jack tackled the leader, pinning him to the floor. The other gangsters fled, Shadow chasing them out the door. Sirens wailed in the distance. The police arrived, arresting the gangsters and securing the scene. Lily sobbed, clinging to Gus. Jack knelt beside Shadow, checking him for injuries. The dog licked his face, tail wagging. The diner erupted in cheers, the community united by courage and hope. But as the police led the gangsters away, Jack knew the fight wasn't over. There would be consequences, investigations, and maybe even more danger. But for tonight, they had won. And as Lily hugged Jack and Shadow, tears streaming down her face, she whispered, "Thank you. You saved my life. The night was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, hope filled the Silver Spoon Diner. The aftermath of the attack left the Silver Spoon Diner in shambles. Broken glass littered the floor. Chairs were overturned, and the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and fear. The police took statements, snapped photos, and collected evidence. The regulars, shaken but safe, hugged Lily and Gus, offering words of comfort and promises to return. But beneath the relief, a new anxiety took root. The Southside crew had been humiliated, their leader arrested, but everyone knew gangs like that didn't just disappear. Retaliation was a real threat. Lily tried to be brave, but the fear crept in. She jumped at every sound, checked the locks twice before bed, and kept her phone within arm's reach. Her mother, sensing her daughter's worry, tried to reassure her, but Lily could see the concern in her eyes. Gus did his best to keep spirits up, organizing a cleanup crew and reassuring the staff. But even he couldn't hide his concern. "We stood up to them once," he told Jack. "But what if they come back with more?" Jack understood the danger all too well. He'd seen what happened when bullies were cornered. They got desperate, unpredictable. He spent his days helping repair the diner, his nights patrolling the neighborhood with Shadow. The K9 was always alert, his nose twitching at every unfamiliar scent, his eyes scanning the shadows. The police increased patrols, but resources were stretched thin. Detective Alvarez, now leading the case, confided in Jack. "We're doing what we can, but these guys have connections. We need evidence to put them away for good." Jack nodded, his mind already working through strategies. He reached out to his old SEAL contacts, asking for advice and support. He taught Lily and Gus basic self-defense, showed them how to secure the diner, and made sure everyone had a plan in case of emergency. But the stress took its toll. Lily's hands shook as she poured coffee. Her smile faded. Gus snapped at customers, his nerves frayed. Even Shadow seemed restless, pacing the diner at night, whining at the door. One evening, as Jack walked Shadow through the alley behind the diner, he noticed a car idling at the curb. The windows were tinted, the engine running. Shadow growled, his hackles raised. Jack approached cautiously, memorizing the license plate. The car sped off, tires screeching. Back inside, Jack found Lily crying in the storeroom. She wiped her eyes, trying to smile. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I'm scared all the time." Jack knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "You're not alone. We'll get through this. But you have to trust me. If you see or hear anything, tell me. No secrets." Lily nodded, her resolve returning. "Okay, I promise." But as the days passed, the tension only grew. The gangsters' allies began to harass other businesses, spray paint threats on walls, and spread rumors about Lily and Jack. The community, once united, began to fracture, some blaming Lily for bringing trouble, others blaming the police for not doing enough. Jack felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He was used to danger, but this was different. These were civilians, people he cared about, people who had never asked for a fight. One night, Shadow woke Jack with a bark. Someone was outside, moving in the shadows. Jack grabbed his flashlight and crept to the window. He saw a figure darting away, something glinting in their hand. The next morning, Lily found a note taped to the diner's door. "Leave town, or next time we won't miss." The fear was back, stronger than ever. Jack knew they were running out of time. He had to find a way to end this before someone got hurt. And as he looked at Shadow, the dog's eyes full of trust and determination, Jack made a silent vow. He would protect Lily, Gus, and the community, no matter what it took. But the darkness was closing in, and the final battle was yet to come. The threat hanging over the Silver Spoon Diner had changed everything. The regulars still came, but their laughter was quieter, their eyes always on the door. Lily worked with a new wariness, her smile returning only when her mother visited. Gus kept the back close, but his hands shook when he thought no one was looking. Jack knew the community was at a breaking point. He spent his days canvassing the neighborhood, talking to business owners, urging them to stand together. Some were afraid, but others, emboldened by what had happened at the diner, agreed to help. They started a neighborhood watch, shared information, and set up a group chat to report suspicious activity. Shadow became a familiar sight on the streets, his presence reassuring to some, intimidating to others. Children petted him on their way to school, and even the most hardened locals gave him a wide berth. One afternoon, Lily confided in Jack. "I can't keep living like this. I want to fight back, but I don't know how." Jack nodded, understanding her fear and her courage. "You're already fighting, Lily, but you don't have to do it alone." He taught her, and Gus more. Advanced Self showed them how to use pepper spray, and drilled them on what to do if the gangsters returned. He also reached out to Detective Alvarez, sharing everything he'd learned about the Southside Crew's movements and the car he'd seen. Alvarez listened, her respect for Jack growing. "You're good at this. Ever think about joining the force?" Jack smiled, shaking his head. "I've had enough uniforms for one lifetime, but I'll help however I can." That night, Shadow led Jack to a discarded burner phone in the alley behind the diner. Jack handed it over to Alvarez, who promised to have it analyzed. "If we can tie this to the crew, we might finally have enough to bring them down." The next day, the community rallied. Business owners put up signs. "We stand with Silver Spoon." Neighbors took turns walking Lily home. Gus organized a fundraiser to repair the diner, and the turnout was bigger than anyone expected. But the gangsters weren't finished. They sent another message this time, a brick through the diner's window, with a note. "Last warning." Jack gathered the staff and regulars. "They want us scared. They want us divided. But we're stronger together. Tonight, we fight back." He set up a plan. The police would be nearby, undercover. The neighborhood watch would keep eyes on the street. Gus and Lily would have panic buttons, and Shadow would be ready. As darkness fell, the diner filled with supporters more than ever before. The gangsters circled outside, their car idling. But this time, they saw the crowd, the police presence, the unwavering resolve in Jack's eyes. Inside, Lily took a deep breath, her fear replaced by determination. "Let them come. We're ready." Jack nodded, Shadow at his side. "We are." The city was holding its breath, waiting for the final showdown, and as the clock ticked toward midnight, Jack knew that everything they'd fought for was on the line. But for the first time, he believed they could win. Midnight came, and with it, a tension so thick it seemed to press against the diner's walls. The Silver Spoon was packed regulars, neighbors, even a few off-duty cops, all there to show support. Lily worked the counter, her hands steady, her eyes bright with resolve. Gus manned the kitchen, his bat within reach, but his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Jack sat by the door, Shadow at his feet, every sense on high alert. Detective Alvarez and their team waited in unmarked cars nearby, radios crackling with updates. The neighborhood watch patrolled the block, their flashlights sweeping the shadows. At 12:17, the black sedan returned. This time, the gangsters didn't bother with subtlety. They stormed the diner, faces masked, weapons drawn. The leader barked orders, his voice full of rage and desperation. "Everyone down." He pointed at Lily. "Come here." The crowd froze, fear and adrenaline surging, but Lily didn't move. She stood tall, her voice clear. "No, I'm not running anymore." The leader snarled, lunging for her. Jack moved faster, intercepting him with a single, practiced motion. Shadow leaped, knocking another gangster to the floor. Gus swung his bat, catching a third in the ribs. The fight was chaos shouts, crashes, the sound of glass breaking, but the community was ready. The regulars tackled two more gangsters, pinning them until the police burst through the door. Detective Alvarez led the charge, her team moving with precision. In minutes, the gangsters were disarmed, cuffed, and dragged outside. The leader fought hardest, but Shadow held him down, his teeth bared, until Alvarez snapped the cuffs on his wrists. The diner erupted in cheers, tears, and hugs. Lily collapsed into Gus's arms, sobbing with relief. Jack knelt beside Shadow, checking him for injuries. The dog licked his face, tail wagging, his job done. Alvarez shook Jack's hand, her gratitude clear. "You saved lives tonight, you and Shadow." Jack smiled, humility in his eyes. "We just did what needed doing." The police led the gangsters away. The threat finally ended. The crowd gathered around Lily, Gus, Jack, and Shadow, their voices full of thanks and admiration. Lily hugged Jack, her tears now of joy. "You gave me my life back. You gave us all hope." Jack hugged her back, his voice thick with emotion. "You did that yourself. You stood up. You fought back. I just helped." Shadow barked as if in agreement, and the crowd laughed, the tension finally broken. As dawn broke, the Silver Spoon Diner stood battered but unbowed. The community had faced its darkest night and emerged stronger, braver, and more united than ever. But as the sun rose, Jack knew the story wasn't over. There would be healing, rebuilding, and new challenges ahead. But for now, they had won. And as Lily, Gus, Jack, and Shadow stood together in the morning light, they knew that courage, loyalty, and love could overcome even the darkest of nights. The days after the showdown at the Silver Spoon Diner were filled with a sense of relief and celebration, but also with the quiet work of healing. The story of the night, the community stood up to the Southside crew, spread quick through the neighborhood, then across the city. And finally, 2 news outlets that hailed the courage of a waitress, a cook, a Navy SEAL, and his remarkable German Shepherd. Lily became a local hero. Customers left generous tips, and strangers stopped by just to shake her hand. She was interviewed on the local news, her story inspiring others to stand up for themselves and their communities. Her mother, once frail and anxious, seemed to grow stronger, proud of her daughter's bravery. Gus, too, was celebrated. The diner's regulars organized a fundraiser to repair the damage, and soon the Silver Spoon was better than ever. New windows, fresh paint, and a mural on the wall depicting Shadow, Jack, Lily, and Gus standing together, a symbol of hope and resilience. Jack and Shadow were honored by the police department and the city council. Detective Alvarez presented them with medals for bravery, and the mayor declared a Silver Spoon Day in their honor. Jack, who had always shunned the spotlight, found himself at the center of a grateful community. Shadow, for his part, enjoyed the attention, especially the treats and belly rubs from children who now saw him as a real-life superhero. But the aftermath was not without challenges. Some members of the Southside crew remained at large, and the threat of retaliation lingered. Jack worked closely with Alvarez and her team, sharing his knowledge and experience, helping to track down the remaining gangsters. The neighborhood watch grew stronger, more organized, and the sense of unity that had been forged in crises became a permanent part of the community's identity. Lily, once shy and uncertain, found her voice. She spoke at community meetings, encouraging others to look out for one another. She started taking self-defense classes, and even began training to become a volunteer with the local police. Her relationship with her mother deepened, the two of them closer than ever. Gus, inspired by the events, hired more staff and expanded the diner's hours. He made sure the Silver Spoon was always a safe haven, a place where everyone was welcome. Jack, for the first time in years, felt at home. He continued to mentor Lily, teaching her not just how to defend herself, but how to believe in her own strength. He and Shadow became fixtures in the neighborhood, their daily walks a reminder that heroes could be found in the most unexpected places. But the story wasn't quite over. One evening, as Jack and Shadow walked past the diner, a car slowed beside them. The window rolled down, and a familiar face appeared, the leader of the Southside crew, out on bail, his eyes cold and full of hate. "This isn't over, Seal," he spat. "You made a lot of enemies." Jack met his gaze, unflinching. "I've faced worse, and I'm not going anywhere." The car sped off, leaving a trail of exhaust and unease. Jack knew the fight for peace and safety was never truly finished. But he also knew he wasn't alone. He had Shadow, Lily, Gus, and an entire community behind him. As the sun set over the city, the Silver Spoon's neon sign flickered to life, casting a warm glow on the street. Inside, laughter and music filled the air, and the promise of hope shone brighter than ever. But as Jack looked at Shadow, he knew to stay vigilant. The final test was still to come. The threat from the Southside crew lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon. Jack knew that the leader's words weren't just empty threats. He doubled down on his vigilance, working with Detective Alvarez and the neighborhood watch to keep the community safe. Shadow was always at his side, his instincts sharper than ever. One night, as the city slept, Jack was awakened by Shadow's urgent barking. He sprang from bed, grabbing his flashlight and sidearm. Shadow led him to the back door, where Jack found a note taped to the glass. Last chance. Leave, or she pays. Jack's blood ran cold. It was Lily who answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. Jack, someone's outside. I heard them. My mom's scared. Stay inside. Lock the doors. I'm coming, Jack said, already pulling on his boots. He arrived at Lily's apartment in minutes, Shadow leading the way. The street was eerily quiet, but Jack's instincts screamed danger. He checked the perimeter, Shadow sniffing the air, every muscle tense. Suddenly, a figure darted from the shadows, heading for the back door. Jack shouted, "Stop!" Shadow loomed ahead, tackling the intruder to the ground. Jack pinned the man, recognizing him as one of the crew's lieutenants. Police arrived within minutes, Alvarez leading the charge. The man was arrested, and evidence found in his car linked him to a plot to kidnap Lily and her mother. The next day, the leader of the crew was picked up by police, thanks to information Jack and Shadow had helped gather. The case against the gangsters was airtight surveillance footage and the testimony of a community that refused to be intimidated. In court, Lily faced her tormentors with courage. She told her story, her voice steady, her eyes never leaving the leaders. Jack and Shadow sat in the front row, their presence a silent promise of protection. The jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The crew's reign of terror was over. The city celebrated. The Silver Spoon Diner hosted a block party, the street filled with music, food, and laughter. Lily and her mother danced in the street. Gus grilled burgers, and Shadow basked in the attention of children who now saw him as the bravest dog in the world. Jack stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the people he had come to love. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Peace earned through courage, sacrifice, and the unwavering bond between a man and his dog. But as the night wore on, Jack knew that life would always bring new challenges. The world was full of darkness, but also of light. And as long as people stood together, as long as they refused to give in to fear, hope would always win. Shadow nudged Jack's hand, his eyes bright with love and loyalty. "We did it, buddy," Jack whispered. "We really did." But the story wasn't quite over. There was still one more chapter to read, a chapter of healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings. The weeks after the trial brought a gentle, lasting peace to the Silver Spoon Diner and the neighborhood it anchored. The South Side crew was gone, their threat finally broken. The city's headlines shifted from fear to hope, and the story of a waitress, a cook, a Navy SEAL, and his German Shepherd became a legend that would be told for years. Lily flourished. She was promoted to manager at the diner, her confidence and kindness inspiring everyone around her. She started a self-defense class for women in the community, teaching them not just how to fight, but how to stand tall and believe in themselves. Her mother, once frail and anxious, seemed to grow stronger. Proud of her daughter's bravery, Gus expanded the diner, adding a wall of photo snapshots of the night the community stood together, of Shadow with his medal, of Jack teaching kids how to trust their instincts. The Silver Spoon became more than a place to eat. It became a symbol of what was possible when people refused to be afraid. Jack found a home in the city he'd once planned to leave behind. He continued to work with Detective Alvarez, helping train new officers and building bridges between the police and the community. He and Shadow visited schools, hospitals, and shelters, their story inspiring others to believe in second chances. Shadow, now a local celebrity, was never far from Jack's side. The dog's courage and loyalty had saved lives, but it was his gentle heart that won over everyone he met. Children drew pictures of him. Parents thanked him, and the city honored him with a statue in the park, a tribute to the dog who had taught them all about bravery. The final test came quietly, in the form of forgiveness. One day, Lily received a letter from the leader of the Southside crew, written from prison. He apologized for the pain he'd caused, admitting that fear and anger had ruled his life for too long. He thanked her for standing up to him, for showing him that there was another way. Lily read the letter aloud at the diner, her voice steady. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," she said. "It's about choosing hope over hate. It's about believing that people can change." The community applauded, some wiping away tears. Jack watched from the doorway, Shadow at his side, pride and peace in his heart. He knew that the real victory wasn't just in defeating the gangsters, but in helping a city find its courage, its compassion, and its sense of family. As the sun set over the city, the Silver Spoon's neon sign glowed brighter than ever. Inside, laughter and music filled the air, and the promise of hope shone in every smile. Jack knelt beside Shadow, scratching his ears. "We did good, buddy. We did real good." Shadow wagged his tail, his eyes shining with love. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up for someone else. Sometimes the strongest heroes walk on 4 legs. And sometimes the world changes not with a fight, but with a community that refuses to give up. Because in the end, courage, kindness, and loyalty are what make us family.